Because whenever they meet, they make sure I don't get an invitation. My NAACP brothers, my Urban League brothers, my African American organizational brothers, when they have their meetings, they don't invite me. And they don't invite me because if Barack Obama is going to be on the program, don't invite Farrakhan. So when somebody else is paying your bill, then they have a right to tell you who can speak and who can't, who can come and who can't. Mayor Johnny Ford out of Alabama told me when they had the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, 80-some leaders were on the phone with our brother from the Urban League, who was chairing the telephone conference. Mayor Johnny Ford told me that he spoke. He raised my name and the name of the Nation of Islam. And he was very passionate that you can't have a meeting like that and the brothers of the nation not be involved. They're a part of us. And Mayor Ford told me that our brother out of New Orleans said, well, thank you for your passionate speech. And they went right on. And I was never invited. We invited them. At the Million Man March, they opposed us in the beginning, not all. But when the crowd came, it was like bringing cockroaches out of the darkness, or rats out of their holes, because there were nearly 2 million men there. I never, ever had a meeting like that and didn't invite the top leaders. In my hotel room, Reverend Jackson came. And he said, Brother Minister, how much time are you going to allot me? Now remember, I called this with the help of others, but I worked for 2 years touring this country, talking to black men to produce the spirit of that Million Man March. I didn't have to give nobody nothing. But when he asked me that question, I said, I can't limit you, Reverend Jackson, because I love him, I admire him, I thank God for the good that he and Reverend Al have done for our people. Speak until you finish what it is that you want to say. I know damn well none of them would say that to me. They don't want me on their programs, but they can come on ours. But this time, if you can't talk justice or else, stay home. This is not for politically correct jackasses. This is not for people who are not ready to confront a government that has denied us justice ever since we've been here. Mr. Trump, you're the leader of America now. You need to try to make America safe from the wrath of God, her chastisement over the wickedness that you all have been involved in since your inception. Since you are the last of the presidents, maybe, that has a chance on your watch to delay the judgment of God. You have a secret chamber in the White House, place where you can go to pray. But Mr. Trump, I really don't see you falling down on your knees. God has to knock you down on your knees because your arrogance, your false pride in the little money you have. Can I show you something from the Quran? Listen to this. It says, all that a man hath of the wealth of the earth, if he had it in his hand and the like of it with it, they would gladly ransom it in the day of resurrection to keep the chastisement of God away from them. Mr. Trump, you won't bow down on your own, but the scripture says every knee will bow and every tongue will be forced to confess. We say it in Arabic that there is no God but Allah, and you say it that Jesus Christ is Lord. Same thing. Bow down.
When there is no enemy within, the enemies from outside cannot harm you. That's an African proverb. So when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside cannot harm you. It's true. This specific proverb carries a lot of truth. It tells you that people from inside will always be working with people from outside to sabotage you. It's your work to know who they are. This proverb teaches us the greatest danger to a people is not always the outsider who seeks to harm them, but the weaknesses, the division and blindness that live within. Louis Farrakhan, speaking in the 90s to Black Americans, was echoing this wisdom when he gave his speech of warning. He was not only speaking about racism, he was speaking about injustice and cruelty of America's system. Louis Farrakhan was also speaking about the condition of the Black community itself, how it must be awakened, how it must see clearly, and how it must not allow the... So we are going to analyze this speech of Louis Farrakhan. I shall give you my deep critical analysis by the end of the video, where we shall also have a touch of deconstruction. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Stuff. Be what he was. He was a Muslim. He submitted his will to do the will of God. Be what Jesus was. Jesus never said, I'm a Christian. Not one time. He never called his disciples Christians. Did you know that? They were called Christians at Antioch by the enemies of Jesus. Jesus said, not my will, but thy will be done. He submitted his will to do the will of God. Come on. So let us do that. Stop all this division and let's come together as a family and love each other and respect each other and work for the good of each other, uphold each other in right, and above all, respect and protect and honor your women. Respect, protect, and honor your women. And to the white students, if you will sit down with these black students in an honest dialogue, without hypocrisy, maybe tomorrow you might make better sense than tonight. Maybe after hearing what Farrakhan had to say, it didn't necessarily drive you further apart. You already apart. Maybe it gave you something, a basis upon which to start an honest dialogue. And through dialogue, maybe you might learn to respect each other. And as I said on the Donahue Show, white students, think about it. You didn't come in a vacuum. You study biology. And you learn Mendel's law. You know that dark skin is dominant and light skin is recessive. No, this ain't no black supremacy. Just that the truth is supreme. You know that dark eyes are dominant and light eyes are recessive. And you teach that you can get the recessive from the dominant. But you can't get the dominant from the recessive. So two white people can only produce white. You can never produce yellow. It's just not in your genetic makeup to do that. It's a biological, mathematical impossibility. But the black man can produce from jet black people an albino with blonde hair and light eyes, showing you that in us is the whole human family of the earth. And from the black man, whom the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called the original people of the earth. That's why you're black. You're not black because you're cursed. You're black because you are the original life in the universe. Yes. Yes. You say, I can't believe it. And I thought I was black and ugly. No, no. You are black and beautiful because you are original. Just be yourself. Don't try to be white people. Be you. Fall in love with you. Jesus said, love your neighbor as who? Yourself. So you can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. So fall in love with yourself, then maybe you'll be able to love your neighbor. And since you don't live in nobody else's neighborhood, I guess your neighbor looks just like yourself. And they got a job for you. Wrong thought. Wrong thought. As factories in America close down and move to Mexico and other places where labor is cheap, black folk more and more out of work. If you think that white folk are going to prepare jobs for you, you got another thought coming. You are here at Illinois State to learn that which will allow you to create a job for yourself. And if you don't do that, then your learning has been in vain. Do you hear me? Just like the basketball team, maybe one or two of those black stars will make the NBA. The rest of them, if they don't have anything up here, after they graduate, that's it, brother. You played beautifully when you were here, but when we can't use you no more, that's the end of that. And to the white students, the world is changing so fast. You cannot face the world that is coming in with the mind of white supremacy. That mind will render you incapable of handling what you're about to see. What you are seeing signs of heavily now. You got a few more minutes? Here is a verse of the Quran. This is a very magnificent book that is not on bookshelves in America, but it's powerful. Listen. In a chapter called Al-Asr, meaning the time, Muslims pray 5 times a day, but there is a prayer that we pray that is called Salatul Asr. And the Asr prayer comes when the sun has fallen away from its zenith and is like midpoint between the zenith and its setting. We measure time by the Earth's rotation on its axis and its revolution around the sun. So the Earth could not rotate on her axis without the light of the sun, nor could she revolve around the sun without the light of the sun. So it is our relationship to the sun that gives us our days and our years. So this chapter is called The Time. The Time. And if you don't have your watch, if you know the sun and the relationship of the earth, you can look at the sun and tell the time. You can look at the shadows even and tell the time by the shadow. Listen now. So Allah says in the Quran, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the time surely man is in loss, except those who believe and do good and enjoin one another to truth and enjoin on one another patience. Very pregnant. I'd like to deliver a few babies here. By the time, the word or the preposition by means that the time is the criterion by which actions are judged. Listen. By the time, surely man is in loss. Why is man losing? His actions are not corresponding with the dictates of the time. When you are out of time, have you ever tried to plant out of time? Nothing happens. Have you ever tried to harvest out of time? Nothing happens. When you go to the disco, if the music is beat, what is that? Time. And your dance gotta be what? Right in accord with the time. But if you don't know how to dance, you can't keep that time, and people don't want to dance with you because you're not keeping time. Have you ever been in a band and the drummer who is keeping the time can't keep that time? He speeds it up, then he slows it down. No musician can play with a drummer that doesn't keep time. Everything is done by time. The whole human body is based on rhythm. So when you sing the song, I got rhythm, I got rhythm, what you talking about? You think that means a Negro that got a lot of rhythm. But look, this heart has a rhythm that it has to keep. When it speeds up or slows down, this is a worry for a doctor, the vital sign. Rhythm, pulse, beat, blood pressure, rhythm, timing. Everything is on time. But when you get out of sync, out of time, things don't go well for you. When the body is not working rhythmically right, the organs begin to work at odds, and it creates dis-ease or disease. Time. What time is it? Not by this watch. What time is it? By the universal clock. Each prophet that came into the world marked time. And if you can't read the prophets, you can't read the clock. And if you don't know the time, then you don't know what you should be doing. And if you don't know what to do and you don't know the time, then you're about to lose not only what you have, but you can lose your life because you're not on time. Now this, y'all all right? Please follow me now. The sun, when it reaches its zenith, you watch, the shadow is very short. When the sun rises in the east and strikes an object, the shadow is long in the west. But when that sun reaches the zenith, the shadow has drawn up from the west back to the object. And as the sun starts setting, the shadow starts going back toward the east. A lot of wisdom in that. When that sun is setting, it's like saying that a world's time is coming to an end. And if you notice, when the sun sets, it sets in the west. And if you watch one of these beautiful sunsets, the sky looks like it's on fire. And this is what God threatens the world with at the end. It is total fire. The Western world has exercised power over all the darker people of the earth. You agree? Yes, sir. Yeah. The light shined in the east, and the shadow on the Western powers gave a long shadow in the west, meaning the Western world or white world began an ascendancy to power. But it's Asr now. It's afternoon. The sun is setting on white world supremacy. Listen, just listen. Don't get emotional. Just listen. That kind of apartheid, I'm better because I'm white, that don't work anymore. It's being challenged by the rising sun. Go ahead. The sun rose in the east again. The Japanese, you beat them in war, but now they're beating you in economy, in technology, in mathematics, in banking. Their society is much further advanced than this one. America is being a loser. She's decaying. Not because somebody is more powerful on the outside, but there is a rot and a decadence going on inside America that is bringing this nation down. I'm appealing to you, black and white, Jew and Gentile. We all live in America, but America cannot continue to exist as she is. Listen. The sun is now setting.
So guys, after clearly listening to Louis Farrakhan give his powerful speech to the black people, here is my deep critical analysis. You see, Louis Farrakhan, while he was speaking in the 1990s, it came a time when black Americans were struggling with crack cocaine, with mass incarceration, with broken schools, and with the government that was smiling on the surface while building policies that damaged black lives beneath. He spoke as a prophet, not as a politician. His language was, is, will be urgent, fiery, spiritual, and unrelenting. Louis Farrakhan told black America the truth. Many did not want to hear, but the system of white power would never stop working to contain them. And what they themselves had to be strong, and that they themselves, the black people, had to be strong enough, wise enough, and united enough to resist the winds of oppression in America. So we want to have the first division of his speech, which is the message of survival, right? He carries, there's a theme of survival in Louis Farrakhan's speech, right? So Louis Farrakhan's first message was about survival. He said plainly that America would not allow black people to rise too high. Whenever black success showed its face, there would be new laws, new prisons, and new economic traps, and new forms of control. He was reminding black Americans that slavery may have ended, and segregation may have ended, may have been declared legally, right? But the system had not changed its heart. It only changed its clothing. What used to be chains and whips had now become sentencing laws, drug wars, and the prison industrial complex. Louis Farrakhan deconstructed the myth of progress by saying, do not be fooled when they give you black mayor, a black CEO, or a black celebrity. The structure of oppression still stands. You see, this message is still alive today under Trumpism. Trumpism is the rule of Donald Trump today. Here we see a revival of open racism. We see voting rights under attack, police killings continuing without justice, and the black wealth still lagging far behind white wealth. Farrakhan's warning was that survival for black people in America cannot be trusted in the hands of their oppressors. It must be taken into their own hands and through self-discipline, unity, and building their own institution. So that was about his message of survival. The second theme that that's available there on the speech is the mask of the system. The mask of the system is the second theme that he spoke about. And here is what Louis Farrakhan says. Racism would not always look like it used to, right? It camouflaged, it changed. Louis Farrakhan warned that the system of oppression changes its mask. In the past, it was slavery. Later, it was Jim Crow segregation laws. In the 1990s, it was the war on drugs and mass incarceration. He was showing that oppression is like water. It takes the shape of whatever container it is poured onto. It conforms, it adapts. If the world will not accept open racism, then the system will rebrand racism as law and order. If the world will not accept lynching, then the system will not rebrand it as police shooting, right? Analyzing the words of Louis Farrakhan, we see the mechanics that Louis Farrakhan wanted Black Americans to stop chasing symbols and instead study structure. Do not look at whether the police chief is black or white. Ask who controls the law, who controls the money, who controls from prisons filled with young black men. The real enemy was not just the face of a racist cop, but the structure that paid the cop, protected the cop, and expanded the cop's power. In Trumpism, the mask became even more brazen. The system began to show both faces at once, the old open racism and the new structural racism together. Trump himself gave voice to hatred while protecting billionaires and corporations who profited from black poverty. Farrakhan's warning is this, that the mask will change but the system will remain, and has never been more true. Louis Farrakhan speaks on the third thing, which is the danger of false leaders, which is, I could call it the third theme. Farrakhan also warned that there would be leaders who promise greatness but bring destruction. He spoke this speech that he spoke in the 90s about politicians who spoke smooth words but passed cruel policies. Farrakhan added, "Beware of those who smile at you, shake your hand, and then sign a bill that builds a new prison for your children." If we analyze this, we see his point, right? The danger is not only in the loud enemy, but in the deceiver. Sometimes the oppressor will appear as a friend. Sometimes the oppressor will use black faces to carry out white agendas. Louis Farrakhan taught that Black America must measure leaders not by what they say, but what they do, and by whose benefit, and who benefits from the actions that they take. Under Trumpism, this warning reaches its sharpest point. Trump built his political brand on promise of greatness, make America great again. But for Black America, this greatness was a return to racial hostility, to policies that stripped protection, to a culture that celebrated white nationalism. Farrakhan voices echoes through time saying, "Do not be fooled." The leader who claims to restore greatness may be restoring chains, right? And so who is the inner enemy? Because he also speaks of the inner enemy, right? Now, remember the proverb that we spoke about. It says about the danger that comes from within, right? Farrakhan pressed this point hard. He said that black people could survive white racism if they were united, disciplined, and spiritually strong. But if they were divided, distracted, and self-destructive, then no amount of fighting the outer enemy would save them. Farrakhan warned against division, rich against poor, young against old, Christian against Muslim, Democrats against Republicans. He warned about that, and he warned against it. Farrakhan said these divisions were not tools of white supremacy. By making black people fight among themselves, the system could relax, knowing its victims were too busy tearing each other down. You see, this is still the reality today. Trumpism thrives in sowing division. It highlights black conservatives who attack black liberation. It funds media voices that block black struggles. It sets poor whites and poor blacks against each other, making them blame one another instead of the wealthy elites or elites who profit from their misery. The enemy within division remains the most dangerous weapon, right? the enemy within becomes the most dangerous weapon. Another thing that I have seen is that the professor, or rather the minister, Louis Farrakhan, talks about the call for economic independence among black people. Another part of his message was about economics. Farrakhan speaks to the black people and tells them that black people could never be free if they depended on others for survival. Jobs controlled by white-owned corporations, foods controlled by white-owned companies, housing controlled by white-owned black banks. All of these kept black people in chains without the name of slavery. Farrakhan called for black people to build their own businesses, schools, farms, and banks. To deconstruct this, we see that he was not just talking about money. Louis Farrakhan was talking about power. In America, wealth is power. And if black people could not, or rather black people do not control their own wealth, they will always be at the mercies of those who do. Today, this warning is still relevant. Black businesses struggle to survive, and racial wealth gaps remain massive. Trumpism widened this divide. With the tax policies favoring the rich and neglecting the poor, Louis Farrakhan's voice, even from the 1990s, still says, build your own or be controlled by others, right? And believe me if I tell you that this struggle is spiritual, right? This struggle of black Americans in America is spiritual in as much as we see it with the physical eyes. Farrakhan also framed the struggle as more than political. He said that it was a spiritual battle. Louis Farrakhan reminds black people that they were children of God, the chosen ones, children of God, yeah? That they had dignity and that to fight for justice was not only a human duty, but a divine duty. This gave his speeches the fire of prophecy. He was not just, or rather, he's not just speaking to people to vote or protest. Louis Farrakhan is calling them to stand as a moral warrior in a battle between truth and falsehood. Today, black movements may not always use religious language, but they still carry the spirit of Louis Farrakhan, which is described, right? Black Lives Matter, for instance, speaks of dignity, humanity, and justice in almost sacred tone, right? The fight is still spiritual because the wound is not economic or political, but also moral. In all these, right? In all these, what lesson do we get? How do we understand? How does this speech become helpful to you who is listening, to you, a black American, an African, right? First of all is, do not be fooled by symbols of progress when the structure of oppression remains, right? Because your brother is a police and is black, do not be happy. Who controls your brother? There is someone who controls him. The second one is, watch the masks of racism, for they change but never disappear, right? It started with slavery, went to Jim Crow segregation. In the 90s, it was the mass incarceration of people and the crack on cocaine. The third one is, beware of leaders who promise greatness but bring destruction. I think this part, Louis Farrakhan was speaking about Barack Obama and his killing of the president of Libya in 2011. You know who he is, right? He also speaks about the fear division with more than hatred without, right? Fear the division within more than hatred without. That who hates you on the outside, don't fear them much as the division that is there in your space. That's the biggest worry you should have. Farrakhan is also telling us to build independent power, especially economic power, right? Let's have our own things that we control by our very own. There's no way we can fight for freedom, want freedom, but we depend on others for economic products. It will never change. Another instance is that remember that the struggle is not only material, but also spiritual. These lessons by Louis Farrakhan speaks directly to black Americans in the age of Trumpism. They show that the dangers of today were seen yesterday. They show that history is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle that repeats unless we break it, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So to bring a conclusion to all this is that, remember the African proverb that the enemy within opens the way for the enemy outside? It's true. Farrakhan's speech in the 90s told black Americans the same truth. He warned that America would not continue to invest in new ways to oppress, and that black survival depended on unity, discipline, independence, and spiritual strength. In Trumpism, we see the truth of his warning. We see racism louder, prisons are fuller, lies faster, divisions sharper. We also see the resilience of black Americans still standing, still fighting, and still searching for unity. Right? So this analysis has helped and has revealed that Farrakhan was not only speaking to his own time, he was speaking to the future, which is our time right now. His warning was a seed planted then, and its fruit is what we see now. The question remains, will black Americans listen? Will they unite? Will they rise? Or will the enemy within give power to the enemy outside, right? The choice, as far as Farrakhan said, the choice is ours, yes. Guys, I hope you got value from what I said. You got value from this commentary. If you have, be sure to subscribe. I'll surely appreciate. And see you in the next one. Stay positive.